Chicago CEO series, a conversation with Kellanova CEO Steve Cahillane. Thank you so much for being here. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to express the gratitude for all the important organizations and individuals that support our mission here at the Exec Club. So first, please join me in welcoming the members of the club's leadership who are in attendance today. Beginning with our board of directors, please stand as your name is called. Jeff Adkins, President and CEO, Energy BBDO. Kevin Kohler, Chicago Office Managing Partner, EY. Patrice DeCoravant, Illinois Market Executive, Commercial Banking, Wells Fargo. Travis Hunter, Chicago Office Managing Principal, KPMG. Dan Cutleroff, Upper Midwest Office Leader, Mercer. Joe Nelligan, CEO, Molex. Scott Swanson, President, Illinois Midwest Territory Executive, PNC Bank. And Laura Tone, Chicago Office Managing Partner, PwC. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to our membership and our organization. I also want to acknowledge the members of the councils of advisors who are here with us. We have Ari Levy, founder and CEO of Shift, Kristen Prince, founder and managing partner of the Prince Law Firm, Julie Scott, president, CEO, and founder, CTS Impact, Katie Tapp, Senior Vice President, Business Development, Lee Hecht Harrison, Mark Villa, Head of Corporate Risk and Broking, Midwest, WTW, and Jeff Healy, Area Executive Vice President and Chicago Market Leader of Gallagher. Thank you also for your steadfast commitment and leadership. Okay, a big thank you to the presenting sponsor of our Chicago CEO series. Oops, I went one slide too far. Sorry about that. Can I go back? I guess I can't go back. KPMG. I also want to thank all of our season sponsors for make our season of exceptional programming possible. All these organizations, if we did not have you, we really could not do any of these events. So we're really, really grateful. And thank you all to our members who are here this afternoon. You are the heart of our organization. If you're not yet a member and you're interested, we have a membership desk back there. We have plenty of members of the staff. They all have a white badge. People will be happy to talk to you about membership. So now I would like to welcome Jim Zarnecki, consumer food sector leader and partner at KPMG, to the podium to say a few words and to introduce today's speaker and moderator. As a global leader in KPMG's consumer retail practice, Jim's focus is on the consumer food sector, leading some of the firm's global priority partnerships. He brings together KPMG's strategy, consulting, IT, and tax solutions to help organizations implement advanced planning and forecasting, customer engagement, and data management capabilities to drive growth. Please join me in welcoming Jim.
Hello, thank you everybody for attending today. That was a lot that she shared there. I definitely appreciate everybody attendance here today. Again, the Chicago Executives Club, along with KPMG, for this phenomenal event. We're gonna discussion is going to take place here with the folks up on here on stage. In today's program, you're going to hear from Steve Cahillane, Chairman, CEO, and President of Kellanova. I had the opportunity to hear Steve's presentation here a couple weeks ago at Cahillane. Absolutely phenomenal story he's gonna share with us today. I also got a chance to delve into some of his products. They shared some great goodie bags down there. The temperature wasn't as nice. It was close yesterday. The temps it was to Florida, but not so much today. But we'll the story of his transformation of Kellogg Company from a 118-year-old cereal company into a global snacking leader is going to be a good conversation. Last piece, guiding the conversation is going to be Francesca Cornelli, Dean of the Kellogg School of Management for Northwestern University. So before we go any further, I also wanted to quickly recognize and congratulate Francesca for being one of 13 women of note in last month's Crain's Chicago Business Magazine. So Francesca's moderation is going to get into the story behind the great results that Steve and the team shared at CAGNY a couple of weeks ago, sharing insights on the growth of a century-old cereal company, again, turning into a global leader in the snack category. So with that, enjoy your lunch, and I know we'll get on to the rest of the program again, but thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm delighted to be interviewing Steve. I have to say the story first that I was day 20 as a dean of Kellogg, and there was a reception of the trustees, and I didn't know the CEO of it at the time, Kellogg Company, was a trustee. So Steve came to me and said, "Hi, I'm Steve. I run Kellogg." And I go, "That's how my mic is not on." It's a rookie mistake.
Yes. So hello everyone. So as I say, I was my day 20 as a dean of Kellogg, and Steve came over as a trustee and introduced himself, say, "Hi, I'm Steve. I run Kellogg." And I thought, I mean, my day 20 and the dean is someone else who's originally thinking older. So, but now there would be less confusion. But let's start from the very beginning, right? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where was your journey to the food and beverage industry?
I'd be happy to. First, let me say thank you all for coming. It's a delight for me to be with you in such a beautiful room with Francesca. It's a real honor. So thank you. So my story begins, I'm actually from New York City, as a matter of fact. I was born in the Bronx, just a few blocks from the Yankee Stadium. I grew up about 50 miles north of there. My father was a New York City fireman. My mother had immigrated at age 18 years old from Donegal, Ireland. And because my dad was a fireman, I grew up in this area where literally everybody's father and mother was in some kind of public service, mostly firemen and police officers. So everybody that I knew, their dad was a fireman or a cop. And I remember hearing at one point somebody did something else and I didn't even understand what it was. And so that's my background, where I came from. I made my way to Chicago, though, by going to Northwestern University, which is my introduction to Chicago and all things Northwestern. But just stepping back for one moment, so, one of the funny things about, being in the food and beverage industry now, which obviously I am, and I've been my entire career in food and beverage. My very first job at 13 years old, I got my working papers. There were actual working papers back then. It was a long time ago, people. And I got a job at the Brotherhood Winery in Washingtonville, New York. Now, trivia question, what's the oldest operating winery in North America? It's the Brotherhood Winery in Washingtonville, New York. They make basically sacrificial wines, but it's a good tourist destination. People can come up from New York City to tour the Brotherhood Winery. I had a job in the maintenance department, which essentially meant I walked around the parking lot picking up cigarette butts. And my second job, when I was 14 years old, which lasted all through high school, was at Randoni's Pizza Parlor. And Joe Randoni was the proprietor, still is, great friend, great mentor, just a little pizza shop. And so you might say, I was meant to be food and beverage, but it's been a happy accident, but I've been doing it my whole life.
That's amazing. But, from childhood, all of the way to see Kellanova looks like a very long journey. So how was it? Did you have mentors? How did you get there?
I did have mentors. I was very lucky. And so as I was making my way through Northwestern, I could go on forever about my Northwestern experience, which was spectacular. And when I showed up there, I really didn't know anything about anything. I was really quite naive. Only 25% of my high school class went to college, and just about all those went to the SUNY schools in New York, which is no surprise. I mean, it's a great state university system. But as luck would have it, I discovered Northwestern because my older brother wanted to be a sports writer, applied to Northwestern. And so I learned about Northwestern. I ended up going there, and it opened up this whole new world that I didn't even know existed. And when I was a sophomore, I met my wife. We didn't get married right away, but we got married shortly after college. And her father, Jim Tappan, served as my most important mentor ever. And so, again, I didn't know what a business career was. I didn't know what I was even doing at Northwestern besides getting a college degree, which my parents were passionate about. But after my junior year in college, he helped me get an internship. He got me an internship with a company called Food Enterprises, which is a food broker in New York. And I basically went in and out of grocery stores, merchandising product. and Kool-Aid and things like that at the time. And it opened up this fascinating thing, retail and consumer goods and why people buy things and why they don't buy things. And so when I was interviewing for my first job out of college, again, I was being definitely influenced by my father-in-law, who was encouraging me to look at all sorts of different opportunities. And the final two opportunities I had, because I was cast in a wide net, was a 2-year program at a very elite New York City investment bank, and a job at the Gallo Winery as a sales rep, stroke merchandiser, calling on grocery stores. And so I went to New York City, and they wined and dined us. They took us to a Yankee game, and I saw Wall Street, everybody in suits, looking all glamorous. This is 1987. The movie Wall Street was out. And then I went to California, and they took us to grocery stores, bathrooms, Colorado 4-liter boxes, a duster, to do that. And I come back from both of those, and I had the offer for both. And of course, I took the Gallo job. And all my friends thought I was crazy. Like, you turn down lists to basically call on grocery stores. And to me, the fundamental thing that it came down to is I couldn't understand, even after we were really trying to understand after my New York City trip, what I would do as an investment banker. What would that be like? I couldn't picture myself. But walking into a grocery store, calling on the grocery store, selling displays, moving merchandise around, dragging stuff out of the back room to put it on display so they could, making that grocery store better because I called on it. Like, I got it. And so I joined the Gallo Winery, and that was the beginning. And they're a great company. They're a great family. They were very, very good to me. And it started my journey.
That's amazing. And so all the way to Kellanova, or actually to Kellogg at the time, 22, you announced a very big announcement about separating the company. And I'm sure everybody here is thinking, and for us, I was like the first step in the winter stage, right? So what was it like? Where were you thinking? What was the vision?
Yeah. So let me take you back a step before that, because when I joined the Kellogg Company, it was a great honor for me. But I wasn't looking for a job. I absolutely was delighted with what I was doing. Again, I've been in the food and beverage business and made my way from wine to beer to soft drinks, and was, running a company called Nature's Bounty, which was owned by a private equity firm, big vitamin company, had a big retail business in Europe, big international retail business called Holland & Barrett. And we were, again, owned by private equity. I was busy merchandising this and breaking the company and selling it in pieces and really engaged, having the time of my life. And this headhunter calls, he's going to be appointed to us, so I won't go into, no, I was understand, but hey, I couldn't see him. This headhunter calls and says, I've got the job of a lifetime for you. You ought to consider this. And I thank you very much. Of course, thank you for thinking me, but I'm not interested in anything else. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. I'm super busy, totally engaged. Anyway, he persisted, and on the second or third or fourth call, he called me and said, the board of directors, this was a confidential search, the board of directors has given me permission to tell you what the company is, because before then it's a company that you'd be interested in. And I said, sure, what is it? He said, it's the Kellogg Company. And I was immediately transported to my 8-year-old self back in the breakfast table in New York with my siblings and my parents, eating Rice Krispies, hearing the snap, crackle, pop, eating Pop-Tarts after track practice. The Kellogg Company. I said, yeah, I'm interested. And I was all in, like, I wanted it. And I was fortunate enough to get it. And so I tell you that because just hearing the Kellogg Company, and the history, the 118-year heritage and tradition is so deeply resonant inside and outside the company, but especially inside the company. And so when I joined, the company had been, like the entire industry, going through a period of really no growth. There was a lot of cost reduction programs. Zero-based budgeting was all the rage. But my thesis when I came in, and when I talked to the board before I joined, is these are some of the greatest brands in food. In fact, some of the greatest brands in consumer goods. And this company ought to grow. And this company can grow if we'll take the same conviction that this company is so successfully demonstrated that they can do against cost-cutting, cost containment, and apply it towards top-line growth. Polish up these none of the brands, contemporize them for the next generation. And that's what we set out to do, and we were successful in doing it. And we were turning the business back to growth. COVID hit, and then boy, did we really grow. But during this whole time, we kept challenging ourselves, what's the next 118 years look like? We did a number of things. We made some acquisitions. We bought RX Bar here in Chicago. We divested ourselves of the cookie and cracker business, primarily the Keebler business. But that Keebler acquisition included Cheez-Its, a gem, we kept Cheez-It. But we really looked and challenged ourselves and said, what's the portfolio for the next 118 years? And we kept coming back time and time again, and the challenge about North American cereal. Why does it not grow? And to oversimplify, and one of the reasons that it just didn't grow for us was because when faced with investment choices and opportunities to invest in Pringles and capacity in Pringles, which is a fantastic brand, and we're selling every can of Pringles we can make. We're opening new factories in Asia and Mexico even as we speak. To continue to launch in emerging markets. We started the noodles business in 2008, instant noodles in Africa. We're the number one player in Nigeria, the number one player in South Africa, and the number two player in Egypt, because we're investing in this, and the business is growing double digits, high double digits. That crowded out every chance and every time we looked at what's it going to take to grow North American cereal. But I had a conviction, and we had a conviction that North American cereal can grow, but not under our ownership, because we're always going to make a different choice. But the industrial logic was easy to come to. The emotional impact of saying you're going to spin off Mr. Kellogg's business when he started 118 years ago was emotionally extraordinarily difficult. And, we really as a leadership team tested ourselves. Are we ready for this? Are we going to do this? But, I really, really have a tremendous regard for my team, because we held hands and said, this is the right thing for the business. This is the right thing for the North American cereal business, and it's the right thing for the remainder of the business. But I'll tell you, making that decision was the toughest decision for me personally, because I can tell you it was a real pleasure for you to tell people that you're the dean of Kellogg, right? Everybody knows it. There's not a single person I've ever talked to that say, what do you do? And I say, I work for Kellogg, that didn't greet that with a smile and an immediate hint of recognition. And then perhaps a story about how Kellogg, played a part in their lives. And we're going to change all that. And that's not, that wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. And so that's kind of the story of how we got there. And I may talk more about it, but I think that first moment where you make that decision is something that I'll never forget.
So in one sense, I can see how difficult it is to let go of others, but then you got the chance, right, to reimagine a new company, a new name, to imagine the future. So how did you go about that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. How do you replace something that everybody recognizes? And like I said, immediately recognizes and has a point of view about. Not easy. And I consider myself a moderately creative person. And so even before, we opened it up to, a partnership with the Brunswick Group here in Chicago, did a phenomenal job for us. Even before you that, I spent a lot of time thinking about what's the new name of the company. Mr. P's house. Mr. Pringles. Nah, that's not gonna work. I hadn't come up with one idea that wasn't a sneaker. I couldn't figure it out. And so again, great partner in Brunswick. They said, let's turn it over to the employees. And so we did a survey. We got thousands upon tens of thousands of ideas that came to us. about what to call the company. And a couple of things really resonated. One was the K. Like, you got to keep the K. And we're one of the few companies that has, just a little over 20 of them that had a single digit, a single letter ticker symbol, K. Yeah. And that K, everybody recognizes. I mean, it's just iconic. So please keep the K, everybody said. Everybody wanted to keep a portion of Kellogg. And so Kellanova was born because a lot of people said, call it Nova and all this stuff. And of course, many of you are probably thinking, did you test this internationally? Yes, we did. And Nova doesn't mean no. And we're not a car company. We call it in Mexico and many Romance languages. So we kept the iconic K. We kept the lead of Mr. Kellogg's name, the Kell, and then a Nova for a new beginning. So next generation of Kellogg. And we set a high bar. There's a lot of great companies that are renaming themselves and have to spend a lot of time explaining why this name and why it makes sense and so forth. We didn't want to be that. We wanted to be the position where people would immediately recognize something. And it would start a conversation around, I recognize that. What is that? And that's what's happened. So we tell people now, I work for Kellanova. Some people say I work for Kellanova, formerly known as Kellogg. But they just say I work for Kellanova. And people recognize, especially when they see that now, they say, I know about, oh, what's different? And so starts the conversation. I'll tell you what's different. This is now a snacking-led powerhouse. The portfolio is different. 50% of our business is done outside the United States. 30% of our business is done in emerging markets. 5 of our brands are iconic. And I talk about Pringles, Pop-Tarts, Cheez-It, Rice Krispies Treats, Eggo Waffle. Very common in my house. Excellent. Thank you all. But if you think about, each one of these brands really defines the category that they're in. If I take Pringles as an example, it owns the can, it owns the shape of the chick, it owns Mr. Pringle, Mr. P, and some of the best snacking companies have tried to copy it unsuccessfully. Because when you're the first and you own it and you invest in it, you can put a moat around it. And same thing with Eggo. There's no branded competitor of note on Eggo. It has, a high 60s share in North America of frozen waffles. And so we wanted people to recognize that. And it starts that conversation where you say, well, it's not Kellogg anymore, but let me tell you what it is. It's the next 118 years. And so a tough thing to do. And I'll tell you, some of the most tough moments were telling people that this was going to change, even before we had a new name for the company. There was a real grieving process, to be honest with you. And it may be, some of you may think, are you kidding me? It's just, the people inside the company are there for a reason. And telling them that, you're going to change the name of their beloved company is, wasn't an easy thing to do. But when we announced the new name, there was a lot of enthusiasm. And now it's up to us. I tell everybody, we just had a meeting here in Chicago about top 150 leaders. And, we said, the founding members of the next generation. And so you have to find those moments of inspiration to tell people they're going to be the part of something new, something special. Yeah, it's, there's things that we leave behind, but most of it we take with us.
But I just want to ask you a little bit more about that, like how you navigate it, because you have so multiple stakeholders, your employers, you're talking, the investors, the consumers. How did you manage to reach out to various stakeholders with different concerns?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, what we really tried to do is understand who all the stakeholders were. And in this instance, the most important stakeholder were our employees and our retirees, who bring so much passion and dedicated and conviction to the company. And I've talked already about our brands, and I love our brands, and we have great brands, and I'll brag about them if you'll let me all till dinner time. But those brands were they're built by people, right? Generations ago, and they're taken into the next generation by people, right? And so all this stuff happens because of the people inside the company who have to be inspired each and every day to show up as their best selves and bring everything that they've got. And so who knew that they had a stake? And we knew that you had to listen to them, and hence, asking them exactly what it meant. Our suppliers, our customers, obviously. So we really went on listening tours and really tried to talk to people about it. And I'll tell you, I remember one of my most difficult, if not my most difficult moments. I did skip level meetings almost once a week through this process. And I bring people in to, conference room, and we talk to them about the spinoff and get their views and really want to hear. And it's one particular one, and people would come first a little guarded, and then I try to do my best to put them at ease. Really, I want to hear. I'm here because I want to hear from you, and I want to learn, and I want you to help us make this whole thing better. And this one particular meeting was very difficult. I had two young women in the group, and clearly they're very emotional, and they were upset. And I tried to draw them out. I said, tell me about what you're thinking about the spin. And they really came after me. And they said, I'm a third generation Kellogg employee. My grandfather started in the Battle Creek plant. My father worked in accounting for 35 years, and I've been here for 20 years. And you're taking this away. You're breaking up this company that has been around forever. Isn't there a better way? How could you do this? And then her colleague had a similar story, also third generation. And so it really brings home, I get it. And you really have to have the courage of your convictions to say. So everybody had a different point of view. And we listened, and we tried to do our level best to say, yes, understand, and here's why we're doing what we're doing, and really try and walk people through the logic. And the industrial logic, I believe, is absolutely inescapable. But again, the emotional logic, there is no emotional logic. Emotion is what it is for a reason. And so meeting people where they are and having that conversation is hugely important, because if we did all this and the people's morale sunk, the company's not going to be successful. And another key stakeholder was our customers. So June 21st, we made the announcement, and we had, our communications team inside the company is the best. And we had a Gantt chart that would fill this entire room just on communications. And, my job on that day one was to call every single one of our biggest customers, call their CEOs and say, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, and here's what you can expect from us. And I had all those conversations, and they were really well received. And the feedback I got was incredible. It was encouraging, it was supportive. I know all these people, known them for many, many years. And some of the things I really remember were customers saying, boy, we're haze. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, it's a little late. The release is out there. But support, I get it, and we get it, and this makes perfect sense. Two asks we got time and time again. Make this frictionless for us. So do not make it harder to do business with these two companies. By definition, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. There's two salespeople now and not one. There's all these things. And so I said, we'll do our best to make it frictionless. And number two, make it value accretive for us. And so I told them, I said, why are we doing this? We're not doing this because we're running away from North American cereal. And now think about that. A lot of people thought you're just jettisoning this business that has been a drag on your top line in your earnings. And the thought is it was a damper on our top line and our earnings. And it was widely misunderstood because we didn't report it as a segment. And so there was a lot, even among the investor community, which is highly sophisticated, there was this feeling that North American cereal is your most profitable, and it's a cash cow, and it funds your growth everywhere else. The exact opposite was true. It was a declining category for us, and its margin had been eroding every year for the last 10 years. And so it was actually Pringles and Cheez-It growth that was feeding, the other side of the house. And so I talked to customers, and this is the best way for the North American cereal business to grow and grow for you. And this is the important point, we're not getting rid of it because we're spinning it off to our own share owners, right? So our own share owners are going to own two companies. They're going to own Kellanova going forward, whose growth prospects are going to be accelerated because of this. And they're going to continue to own North American cereal, who are going to have the best chance that they've ever had in a generation to grow. And so that's my commitment to you, customer, that we're going to do these things. And my ask to them was, and keep us honest. Like the phone is always on, when a customer's calling. And so if we're too much friction, if we're making it difficult, you gotta let us know, because we're in kind of this together. And, I want both of these businesses to be successful. And so it was really understanding and having a full diagnostic against all those stakeholders, being ruthlessly transparent, and then thinking about communication in ways that were, dynamic. Like we cannot over communicate with any of these stakeholders as we go through this.
Well, it must have been a kind of a process. I'm impressed. You still have so much energy, and this is all happening. But okay, so there are difficult moments, a lot of talking. What was your most uplifting moment, or also only the most surprising, something you really didn't expect?
So I'd say one of the highlights, the highlight, is we got a great HR team at Kellanova, Kellogg. Phenomenal. Melissa Howard, who runs it, is sitting in the front row here. And Melissa and team looked at, again, this enormous work in front of us. And we had thousands of people to place in 2 different companies. We had a lot of separation that was happening, to stand up different companies. And there was a real fear in the organization that this is going to mean thousands of job cuts, because they're going to be, literally, 4,500 people on any positions. And we went through that whole thing with such a purposefulness and a mindfulness. And on the selection day, and it was cascaded down, we didn't announce any layoffs. And that was extraordinary. And there was a lot of cynicism that we'd be able to do this, but because we worked so hard at it, we were able to stand up these organizations. And we made some purposeful choices. There was dis-synergies with one of sales. Like, we're going to have sales organizations that are powerful on both of these, and we're going to grow into them. But that was when we made that announcement, and people understood, wait, I've got a job here, and it's the job that I applied for. Was incredible. Another highlight was the day of the announcement of the company name.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, I told this story. I haven't told my wife this, so I have to be careful. But I knew when making the announcement about the new company names, it was going to be a binary reaction. And I likened it to, when you ask your spouse for his or her hand in marriage, right? It's going to be a really good day. It's going to be a really bad day. Right? It's a binary decision that you're asking for. And so this was, we're going to either, and I'm standing in front of a room like this of all of our people, and they've been waiting. It's like, drum roll, please. And we did the WK Kellogg Co. first. And so this was really interesting, because there's a lot of people that don't be able to populate that business. It's, it's not a growth business. It's seniors, the one that's really challenging. We had no problem. So we stood it up with an executive team from all inside the company. And it was all top talent, really good people with significant jobs inside the company. And so one of the things that they really wanted was to be able to harken back to the heritage. And so when we announced WK Kellogg Co., the signature founder's name as the name of the new company, eruption. They're just so happy. They were convinced we were going to call it the Battle Creek Twisted Cornflake Company. Thought about it. But no, we gave WK Kellogg Company. So immediate positive reaction. And then the one I was really nervous about, and I said, and then the name of the new company is going to be Kellanova. And we put it up. And there was like a pregnant pause, and then an eruption of enthusiasm. And so that was another highlight. And then, the kind of the final highlight, the party to celebrate it all, we went down to Wall Street on the listing day. And I had, most of my entire team, and we had 5 food trucks outside, with the brands I've already mentioned. And it was a mob scene. We're getting very free food, and it was just a mob scene. And so that was, just generated all this enthusiasm. And then we were, ringing the bell in New York Stock Exchange. You actually ring the bell, and so I'm like, okay, I got one job to do today. And press the button on time. And then Ahmed Benadi, who's our CFO, and I ran down to to watch the first trade taking place. And so they held the trade for like 2 or 3 minutes so we could watch it be traded. I can't tell you what that is like. I'm staring at this computer screen, like, I'll believe you a trade. Okay, yeah, I'm trading. Now I'm then racing into the CNBC booth, which they actually have like there on the, in the thing, and talking about the new company and so forth. So there's a lot of enthusiasm. But it was enthusiasm born of the promise that people felt that we had about really the next generation of growth coming. And so, and difficult moments all along the way. Obviously, I talked about, you know, the 2 women in that listening session. And so there's lots of times where, you know, it was just challenging. Like, there's a lot of work. It's the most significant transformation I've been a part of. Yeah. And I've done some big ones. You know, I was part of the Coke bottling system and the Coca-Cola Company, when we brought all the bottlers in North America back inside, seeing the biggest vertical integration that had ever happened. This was orders of magnitude above that. And so a lot of challenges along the way, but for me, the lesson was just a reminder of what I've always known. It's always about the people, and surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, who, you know, you really understand that they're coming at it from a place of integrity. They want to do the right thing. They show up, you know, with courage each and every day, with toughness and grit, and you'll get through it. And then just always make sure that you're open for the information, because there's no, especially going through something like this, like don't bite into the bad news, because it's gonna come. So let's get it early and let's deal with it. Yeah.
So I'm sure everybody wants to hear a bit more about that. So we'll start with people say, "Are you sure you want to do it?" Exit with the success, but of course in the middle along. How did this shape you as a leader, and also as advice to people going through transformation? You said you did money, you did this one huge. What kind of leadership you really felt?
Well, I think, you know, you have to, again, surround yourself with those great people. And for me, the most important thing always, it sounds so obvious, but it's integrity. I mean, you want to do business with people who you just fundamentally have no question that they come at it from the right place. And people with real values that share it. You know, I always tell young people when they're thinking about, you know, a career, what's important, like, it's values. I mean, if you can connect your own personal values with the values of the company, and sometimes you have to stretch it a bit, not stretch the values, but, you know, understand, like, I can show up every day as my true self and not try and, you know, put a different hat on. That's like the table stakes of getting it done. And then, you know, courage for me is always, it's just so important. You have to surround yourself with people with real courage to talk to you, you know, in moments when it might be difficult. And I think, you know, Winston Churchill said so famously, courage is the most important virtue because it allows for all the others. And, you know, so you have to have people who are willing to tell you the tough facts. And then, you know, I joke about this, you know, I tell my team the best advice I have was just work a little harder. You know, just that it ain't your end, just try, you know, go for it. But there's this stick-to-itiveness that's so important. And it's about resilience, it's courage, it's all those things. But, you know those people when you see them, like, no matter what, like, this is where we're going, and there is nothing that's going to stop us from getting there. We may change direction, we may have to make different choices, we may leave and zing and zag, but if that's where we're going, there's nobody that's going to stop us from getting there. And sometimes you just have to be tougher than the rest.
Well, that is an amazing message. But now I'm sure you want to talk also about the future, right? So we have done this, and so what's the future of Kellanova, like global, the powerhouse? You want to be the best, I hear. What is the vision going forward?
Yeah, so, you know, our new vision as we came out of this is we want to be the best snacking-led powerhouse in the world. And if you think about that for a moment, it may sound, well, of course you do. But, you know, when you say you want to be the best, there's only one best. And it's a word that's often misconstrued. So if you think about it, a lot of people say, well, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen. That's one of the best restaurants in town. No, that's one of the better restaurants in town. That's one of the better movies. There's only one best restaurant. There's only one best movie. Some of this is subjective, but there's only one best snacking-led powerhouse. So we might not be the biggest. Maybe we will be, but there's a long way to go. We may not be the biggest, but we can be the best. But in order to get there, we're going to have to best some of the really, you know, recognized companies that you all know very well who do things extremely well. And that is, what we set our sights out to do. But if you look at our portfolio for just a moment, just outside the United States, to show kind of what the company is capable of. Africa is, to me, the continent of this century, but probably the next century. And so I was talking to analysts last week and investors last week at this conference, and get a lot of questions about Africa. You don't get syndicated data. You don't get a lot of people who go and actually work the markets in Africa. And so it's not intellectually it's understood, but it's not always understood in ways that are meaningful in our business. And I said, look, 10 years from now, trust me, people will be talking about, you're going to be talking about Africa the way you talk about India today. And we made a big bet in Africa. And we're the biggest, food company there now. And so in Nigeria, a population of over 200 million, we've got a huge business, almost $1 billion. And it's a noodles business. And we really learned how to do noodles there. We have a very high share in noodles in Africa, in West Africa. We launched noodles then, based on that learning, 5 years ago in South Africa, where the largest food company in the world has had the leading position in noodles with a brand called Maggie's. The number one noodles in South Africa right now is Kellogg's noodles. We launched in Egypt. We have the number 2 noodles business already in Egypt. Because we've learned how to operate in Africa in ways that, everything's about route to market. It's about really selling out a structure, having a moat around the power of your route to market, having an affordability pyramid. So you can't go in with just cereal, just Pringles at the top of the pyramid. You have to have a locally relevant, affordable food that gives you the scale to then take the rest of your offering. And so we think that we're in the most interesting emerging markets of any snacks company, and we have the leading position. And that's not always that well understood. Now you think about our snacking brands. And so how do we come out of the gates talking about how we're going to show up differently? Anybody here to pop up? So we met these differentiated brands. And so we did, we're spending more in advertising than we ever spent. And we launched the new year with the Pop-Tarts Bowl with, there's partners from Weber Shandwick here today. And I give you a shout out. These guys are fantastic. So they come to me along with the Pop-Tarts leadership team. And I would not get involved in this. I'm not a micromanager, I don't think. So I don't want to get involved in this level of detail. They come to me and say, we've got this great idea for a bowl. We're gonna sponsor the bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We're gonna have a mascot, a live mascot. It's gonna do all this activation during the game. It's gonna be the strawberry flavor. Everybody's gonna fall in love with this mascot. Gonna fall in love. It's charismatic. It's all this stuff. We run the Pop-Tarts commercials all through the game. And then at the end of the game, we're gonna toast them, kill them, and eat them. And so the first thought that went in my head is, I'm going to send cannibals all over the world. And I asked a couple of questions. I said, I trust you guys. Go for it. It's either going to be the best or the worst activation. And it created 6 billion impressions. Just this one activation. I've been around for a long time. It's the single best activation I've ever seen in consumer goods in my life. And then we followed it up with the Cheez-It Bowl. And then so the Cheez-It mascot comes up with a sign that says non-edible mascot. And so just riffing on each other. And then, of course, the Super Bowl, we launched, when I joined, I said, we're not on the Super Bowl. If we want to show up on the world stage in the snack, you got to be in the Super Bowl. It's not just Super Bowl. It's not. And so we had our 7th, spot this year, did fantastic. Chris Pratt as Mr. P. And, all these things make a difference. You're like, why are you talking about? It makes a difference how you show up. And so we're showing up in ways where we really think these are the greatest brands. Again, they define the categories that they're in. And so that's who we are now. We're snacking led. We have an international focus. Half of our business is now outside the United States. We relocated to headquarters here to Chicago. Great town. Yes. I changed the name of the company. But still, every morning when I get my news clippings, I see you every single time because it shows up at Kellogg, Kellanova. Yeah, it's exciting for us. And so we've got a story to tell, but more importantly, we've got a story that's real, that's actionable, that's inspiring, that, our people do get up each and every day and say, let's bring it. Let's bring it. Like I said, we had a top 150 executives here in town, just down the street to talk about all the things that we're going to do. at Investor Day, and then again at Cahillane, this big conference. We took our long-term algorithm up. And so we said, we're going to grow. We used to say we're going to grow 1 to 3%. Now, a lot of you in tech and other areas said that doesn't sound very exciting. In food, 1 to 3 is, normally seen as, pretty good, because you grow 1 to 3 top line, you go 3 to 5, operating profit, you can get your EPS growing 7 to 9, your total shareholder return, the way the math works, is usually going to be double digits, if your multiple holds even. Now, the food sector has been under a lot of pressure. But we took that multiple up to 3 to 5 because of the way our portfolio makeup is now, because of those top brands, those leading brands, and because of that international exposure that we have. And so we took our outlook all the way up on every metric. And in our last earnings release, we affirmed that. And that's a winning, that there's no food companies out there that have, higher aspirations. And so, we've gone public with what those aspirations are, and it's going to be up to us to deliver against it. But there's nothing like accountability as a value. And there's nothing like telling the world that this is what we're going to go do. I know in cities around the world, including right here in Chicago, when we stood up and said, we're going to be the best, that's up in the locker rooms, the proverbial, the metaphorical locker rooms of our competitors. And I love that.
Well, you make such a compelling case. I wonder whether I should remain the Kellanova School of Mine. I think it's really on my no. I have to ask you though, what is your favorite snack?
I have 4 children. I always say that's like asking who's your favorite child. So it depends. It depends on the time of day and the occasion. It depends on the GPAs that they bring you home or the word, all those types of things. But I'll tell you a couple of things. I do love Pop-Tarts. I mean, I grew up eating Pop-Tarts. I was a runner in high school, and it was the snack after every track practice. A box of white cheddar, Cheez-It white cheddar greaves does not stand a chance in front of me. Like, it doesn't stand a chance. And I need extra crunchy cheddar Cheez-It. Doesn't stand a chance.
And I already, you talked so much about the people and how you carried all that throughout the transformation. Now, how do you keep them galvanized about the future and going forward?
Yeah, I think it does come down to the vision. And so if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And, we all use our different metaphors, whether it's sports or, anything else. And there's something to me very inspiring about being the best. And as you start to define it, it's, and we celebrate. I talked about the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We celebrate that. We celebrate when we have victories, when we do something that is, sets ourselves apart. And so if you think about, again, advising young people who are starting from their careers, it's about achievement, right? It's not about just showing up and getting a job done. To me, as I look back and reflect on the things that I'm most proud of, where I really remember them and get jazzed about them, is when you achieve something with a team that sets yourselves apart. And so it is, that defining consumer promotion, that big idea, that television commercial, that big solve for a retailer, that joint business plan with one of your customers that just over delivers, that, you sit back and say, this, we won. That was a questioned win for us in the marketplace. We measure ourselves every day. Every week we get a report card from syndicated data that tells us how we're doing. And so if you want to be part of something that is got, again, the best brands, that is dedicated to that next 118 years being even better than the last 118 years, then doing it with the utmost integrity, by having really, really creative, excited, motivating people around you when, we're your place. And I get asked often, how do you know, when you're successful, where do you want that kind of final legacy? And I always think, if we go on to the Kellogg Graduate School of Management campus, and we are one of, if not the most attractive employers, people want to come to work for us. So we go on to undergraduate university campuses, and we show up with Kellanova, where there's a long waiting list. They want to interview with us. will want to be part of our company. They really want to come work. And they come. They have a great experience and we retain them. That's the most important metric. Because if you do that, you will have achieved all your financial metrics. Nobody wants to go to work for a loser. There's not a 24-year-old who says, I'm going to be the one who turns around the company. Jump on in. Maybe at the top of the house, you say, yeah, I'll be up for that. But when we get young, energized people say, that's where I want to work. All the financial metrics, all that other stuff, you will have done that. And then you're in that virtuous cycle. There's only the free and really exciting people who make everybody else around them better.
But I still have to ask you, this is a very fast-moving industry. Yes. Some challenges, when I think about challenges, are there any?
The types of challenges we've been through the last 5 years, obviously it's well understood, but, I talked about this earlier when we had just launched what we call a deploy for growth strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So this was in late 17. We're going to turn this company around. We're going to get it back to growth. And we were. Then all of a sudden COVID hit. And, it was a series of reactions, depending on what business you were in. When you're in the hotel business, like, oh my goodness, terrible. You're in the entertainment business. We're in the food business, and we sold everything that we could make. And then kind of yaddle that, and you had all the bottlenecks and shortages. You have all these unexpected things. Who ever thought we would be talking about a war in continental Europe, and it's slow goes on. And then obviously what's happening in the Middle East right now. So all these things disrupt our business in meaningful ways. What's happening in the Red Sea is very, very disruptive for us. Having to bring things around the Horn of Africa. So there's challenges every single day. And so I think to your question, it's the winners in the future will truly be those who have the benefits of scale. Scale is really important in our business. And when you talk about technology and AI, all these, the days of having where the entrepreneur who will start something from scratch, it's still going to happen. But right now, the big companies, all of a sudden, scale is starting to make a bigger difference than it has in many ways because of technology and new capabilities that are required, but also because of the challenges around all things supply chain. So scale is really, really important. But resilience and agility is more important than it's ever been because I don't know next quarter what's next. We keep thinking, okay, we're back to normal. We can't even define what normal is anymore. So it's being able to run a big company with the benefits of scale, but having the agility to really pivot and move fast like small companies. Now, everybody says that, right? Of course, we all want to act like small entrepreneurial companies. But how do you measure, how do you really do it? And how do you know when you're doing it? Is really the question. And so we've learned a lot over the course of the last 7 years. We've learned a lot over the course of this whole transformation. And so as we enter this new era, what I keep encouraging all of our folks is look at what we did while we were also doing this, the biggest transformation in the history of the company. And, we kept all the things, our commitments in the marketplace. We kept, these great brands relevant in front of consumers. And now we have to be ready for whatever that next big challenge is. Because there's little challenges each and every day, but there's been monumental challenges. And we don't know what that next one is. But if we set the company up to be truly resilient, agile, with all the benefits of scale, don't need to go to a winning formula.
Well, that is an amazing way to end. I'm getting messages from there down. Like, I have to finish. Yes. As you can see, very best because I was so interested. This is such an amazing sphere about the courage and transformation, bringing along people and the vision. So thank you, Steve. I'm sure everybody's been inspired by this. Thank you. Thank you so much.